Welcome back, YouTubers. It's time for Q&A number 118. You guys know the drill with regards asking questions. It's all in the description box below. After that, gives us more time to answer some damn questions. So let's go right onto it right now. Jarvicious, I believe that's how that name is pronounced. If you could book an NXT Invasion storyline and make a pay-per-view out of it, how would you book the storyline and what would the card look like? I don't know if I would do an NXT Invasion storyline after the Nexus. I just think it's been, 2 or 3 years now. I think we should wait until that's kind of really out in the dust before we do any NXT storyline right now. And right now in NXT, there's, in my opinion, not enough ready talent, and in my opinion, it just wouldn't work at this time of the year, especially now you have this corporation angle going on.
Well, the way I look at it, we've had Invasion storylines done in the past, especially in the WWE.
And TNA, Ace and Ace.
If we count that. I think we could move away from that for the time being, but I'll at least do a TNA pay-per-view.
With a TNA Invasion storyline, I imagine.
You could do something like that.
Something like that, yeah. Ambrose Freak 95. Would Velvet Sky have a decent run in WWE despite WWE's terrible Divas division? Well, she does have that kind of Divas look, so I think WWE would be pretty high on Velvet Sky. I mean, obviously, wrestling ability isn't the be-all, end-all of being a WWE diva. At the end of the day, it's about how good you look.
Trish, Michelle McCall. We've had
Lita.
Oh, I was going with the blondes. Right, they get a good advantage.
So let's just pretend Lita's blonde for a minute, shall we?
Yes. It's just, you see, not just because she's blonde, even though I'm pretty sure in Vince's eyes that'll play a strong point. But when it comes to talent and wrestling, at the minute, the WWE don't really focus too much on the actual wrestling. But Velvet Sky, if she came in, I'm pretty sure she would be taken seriously.
Pretty much it'll be more about the character, really, and how they do the character. Do WWE host too many events over the course of a week? Well, I only watch SmackDown and NXT, and that, in my opinion, is enough. I don't watch Raw anymore.
Sadly, the WWE are hopefully starting to realise the amount of shows they're creating, the benefit of them are not working, so they're getting cancelled, and they're just sticking to the important ones. But if they continue to try and make all these miniature shows, extend shows, it could come too much.
Well, I mean, they've got Raw, SmackDown. They're the main two. NXT Superstars main event, and they've got like Afterburn, Velocity, Vintage. So they've got a couple of these programs, but there are too many in order to keep, because they do storyline continuation on main event as well, and I don't really want to watch that show, if I'm honest with you. Is it fair that the WWE look down on major indie wrestlers like Punk and Daniel Bryan Cesaro, keeping in mind drawing power outweighs talent? Aren't CM Punk and Daniel Bryan the two top baby faces in WWE right now?
Well, this is all before. I don't think this was even done before. Daniel
Possibly
Bryan.
So, but I'm just saying, even before then, Punk and Bryan were still getting somewhat of a big push in the company.
I guess those two, it took like Bryan a while to get to where he's at. CM Punk had the look, I guess, in WWE's eyes. Yeah, and there's all these other newer ones coming in. You could say they're failing to get the push.
I get the point you're trying to make here. Indie wrestlers, generally, Vince McMahon doesn't like pushing something that isn't his own. Why do you think when he got people like John Cena and Randy Orton and Batista, people that are essentially people that he created, why he made them such big guys, and why it's taken so long for him to make Daniel Bryan and CM Punk, etc., people like that, his kind of guys, because he didn't make them. It was ROH and the Indies that made them. And generally, when Vince can't put his stamp of approval on something, it won't happen. So that's that. Codebreaker 146. Where do you see the Wyatt family, where do you see Bray Wyatt's character going from now on in this whole angle with Kane? Well, Kane's now gone out of the WWE for a little while. He seems a little bit directionless right now. He hasn't really done that much on SmackDown. I don't really know about Raw.
The way I see it, I think Bray's slowly building up this. Like, he'll probably go through non-feud wrestlers, and then all of a sudden, when we get to like Hell in a Cell, which Kane will be famous for, I think there'll be a big storyline continuation there.
Indeed, I hope they do continue on with the Bray Wyatt character. I mean, I don't want to see him in filler. I think the character's good enough to put him in the story, to put him in different storylines. So I hope they don't just go right off the wall with the Wyatt family, kind of similar to what they did with the Shield a while back. What do you think the tag team division needs to be taken seriously? More tag teams. They've got a decent amount of tag teams in there right now. I think little mini tag team feuds, number one contendership matches, tag team matches throughout Raw and SmackDown, maybe, proper tag teams.
The way I see it, in the WWE, they have tag teams come in, and they're not permanent tag teams. They're thinking, we'll put you as in a tag team just to build you up, ready for the main event. Instead of thinking, you'll be good in the tag team for a few years, build up a career in a tag team division, they're just using the tag team to build up with most tag teams recently to push them further.
Well, I guess the whole point of a tag team in general is to highlight one guy and then push them to the main event scene. You've seen it with the Hardy Boys, you've seen it with Edge and Christian, Shawn Michaels, etc. But at the end of the day, we've got plenty of tag teams in WWE right now. You know, you've got the Real Americans, you've got the Usos, the Primetime Players, the Shield, you know, you've got the Los Matadores that are coming through. So we do have a decent amount of tag teams right now. We just got to try and feature them on a regular basis, really. If you were hanging off a cliff and the only way you could be saved is to watch Scott Steiner and the Festus character wrestle in a 5-hour Iron Man match, you definitely need 5-hour energy for that one. Would you let go of the rock you were hanging on, or would you do it? Oh, I'd definitely do it. Life is more important than that, really, isn't it?
Again, they're wrestling, they're distracted, we can climb up and get away, but that was a bit of a bizarre question.
It was, yes, and a bizarre answer to follow that up. Howard Starr, aka Howard the Man. What if Vince does decide to buy TNA one day? Who would he pick to become a top star in the WWE? Well, no one from TNA. I know that.
Bobby
He wouldn't be a top star in WWE like a John Cena, but he would be some kind of main event guy. But no one from TNA will ever be the guy in WWE even if Vince did buy out the company, because Vince wouldn't want something that was created by someone else to be his top guy. We know that. There we go. Metal Ruler 45. What WWE wrestler gimmicks would not work in TNA? Any big man gimmicks like Big Show, Mark Henry, because TNA never seemed to be able to push bigger guys, did they?
Abyss had kind of a run, but I guess since Abyss, there's no other name that you could count. So I'd say big guy. Dancing gimmick, well, you can see what's happening to the Bros. You know, they're not really getting a good
Fandango wouldn't work in TNA, I don't think. I don't think TNA would really want to push a character like Fandango, personally. I don't think the Miz would work in TNA, really, either, to be honest with you. I think Miz has got WWE written all over him, in my opinion. TNA wouldn't push him.
Miz I'm a bit slightly about, because of this mic work, TNA do like to highlight some of the good mic workers in TNA and give them their own kind of segment and stuff. I think with the Miz's mic work, I think he'd have some kind of future in TNA.
AJ versus Aries or Aries versus Angle, which match would you want to see? Wow, we have to choose between these two.
Aries and AJ we've seen, Aries and Angle not yet.
I would still, I must admit, Angle is kind of in the peak of his career, so you'd want to give him a match against Aries. I must admit, AJ and Aries is a match I would love to see, even though I've already seen it once on Impact. Tom Cushney, would you like to see Kane get one more title run, and which title would be fitting? He's really too far in his career now. He's had that sort of one more title run, in my opinion. I don't know whether the character's now strong enough to really... I just think he's a kind of mid-card character now, or potential main eventer to put over, young stars now, in my opinion.
I know they're using Kane to push Bray Wyatt, but I think if the feud goes in a monstrous way, once that feud is over, Kane's a monster again, and if he started going towards a face WWE champion, win it, not sure, but give the champion a good run. Probably so.
So you're saying not winning it, but you could definitely be some kind of challenger.
As much as I would love to see him as champion again, more WWE, the one he's not really held, I think the monster gimmick coming back in a strong way thanks to Bray Wyatt, I think it just has a challenger.
ASO120100, what's your opinion on Jake Carter? He's the son of Vader. I really don't see too much in Jake Carter from what I've seen on NXT personally.
I was this close to saying who.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. If you don't watch NXT, you don't really know who Jake Carter is, I'm afraid. Matteo Free Hottie. Do you think it's possible for a faction/stable to debut as faces instead of heels and make a serious impact? What factions have we seen debut as faces? I'm trying to remember. They were sort of debuted as heels. I guess
they got over the face.
What about Fortune? They were a face faction in TNA when they debuted. I don't know. It's possible to establish face stables, but you'd need to put them against strong heel stables. And generally, bringing in heel stables is better and bigger because they'll make a bigger impact because they're bad. They're doing badass shit. And
NWO
were heels. Ace and Eights were heels. Exactly. Johnny, not catching me out today, NJ. The Enlodian. How do you feel about Total Divas? I find it pointless because you're seeing those people in real life and then they have to go out on WWE TV and act different. Well, For people like us, we're going to find it pointless and we're not really going to watch it or enjoy it. But there are people out there who, I believe the people who kind of like watching like Jersey Shore and people like that, Big Brother, will kind of like this reality series. And you know what? It's actually, if you think about it, it's some good cross promotion between, you know, this TV program and WWE. I do see your point though. You know, real life and what they do on WWE TV when they're acting, it is a bit weird, but it's reality TV. You know, there you go.
The two ways I see it is, number one, maybe this is going to in future be used to get us behind newer divas, so when they come into wrestling you can sympathise or get behind them. And number two, the divas don't really get that much focus on Raw, SmackDown, so to give them something extra for the time being, I don't see much harm.
And it gets good ratings as well, so clearly a lot of people are watching the TV program. Ambrose Freak 99. If Daniel Bryan is not a big draw but gets massive pops from the live crowd, does this mean Bryan is over with only live crowds and not TV viewers? Well, now WWE are putting him in a main event spot. He might become some kind of draw. I mean, I remember I've been an advocate of saying Daniel Bryan isn't a massive draw and everything, but he did have a main event segment on Raw a couple of weeks back where he was up against the Shield in the Gauntlet match and it drew over 1 million viewers. You know, that's pretty damn good.
Well, with Bryan, I think, yeah, people are putting him down, but there's been a big majority of people liking him, wanting to see him go further. I think the fact that they're doing better with him now than they did with the World Heavyweight, I'll say Bryan's going to count as a draw.
He's one of the most over guys in the company, and now WWE, with this corporate storyline, are getting more and more people behind him, etc. And it should make him into at least some kind of star for WWE down the line, which they desperately needed. Aside from Rock vs. Punk and the Royal Rumble match, the 2013 Royal Rumble was a pretty mediocre card, even including an identical repeat of a match that was previously seen on free TV. Was it because the writers got lazy knowing that The Rock would skyrocket buy rates either way? I mean, generally with the Royal Rumble, even though it's unfortunate, generally the Royal Rumble match is a big draw, and, you know, Rock and Punk they knew was going to be a big draw, so it's kind of like, well, that's going to take up 2 hours of the show, so this other hour doesn't really matter all that much. So it probably was laziness, but I can kind of understand why.
The kind of way I see it is, that could be one really strong valid point, but the way I see it is that the WWE, we've been saying this in past pay-per-views, the rest of the card, apart from the main event scene, has never really had that much focus as of recently. So I'll say, going back to that, I don't think it was just those two matches. I think it was the WWE writing, concentrating on one area instead of the whole thing.
Mr. TNA 2005. In an interview, Bully Ray said that the last man in the BFG series should be punished, like going for some time back to OVW or at least 90 days off. I agree, and that would mean you've also have a fight in the last match, also not to be last. What do you guys think of that? So being last in the BFG series, that should be some kind of punishment. Do you think anything?
Well, you said about going to OVW. They've already, again, this is before this happened, they released all these wrestlers, so to not release but move another wrestler away, I don't think they could really benefit from that.
Yeah, I'm not a massive fan of the idea either. I can kind of see where you're coming from, Mr. TNA 2005, but you know, you kind of need designated jobbers in there, like Robbie E that year, you know, Jay Bradley this year, Hernandez, whoever. What would you say if New Japan Pro Wrestling would invade TNA and that would play for a month, all ending with a pay-per-view in the Tokyo Dome, which could make TNA more well-known and have more eyes on them in Japan? I don't know too much about Japanese wrestling, but I know that some of the events they do down there do get some quite good viewership in terms of, not just in terms of buy rates, but in terms of the attendance at the Sky Dome. So it wouldn't be a bad idea. I'm not sure TNA would really want to promote themselves in Japan, because what Japanese people are really going to contribute to the rating in America?
Well, a slight part of me thinks I like when they do cultural stuff, because wrestling should be cultural. Like, Carly's over in his home place. We've had other wrestlers who are big in their home
British
place.
Bulldog in, you know, SummerSlam 92, for example.
So if we did go to Japan, again, all bring back the invasion stuff, I guess it'd be good to see what happens, because TNA is all about taking risks. I could see it happening, but long term, without knowing much about Japan wrestling, I won't know if it's likely to work or not.
And it's not like TNA really have like a Japanese, like Asian big star or anything, really, is it? So, you know, can you really do too much with that? Not a bad idea, though. Dubstack G. What would you think of a faction called the League of Gentlemen, which would act like a secret society of the wrestling? It would consist of Wade Barrett, Drew McIntyre, David Otunga, and be led by Dean Ambrose. Or who would you put in the group? I'd put William Regal in the group just as like an informant or something. But that's not a bad idea. The League of Gentlemen, maybe have like loads of British people in there. I mean, it's a fact. It's an idea that a lot of people have kind of suggested to
My
us.
big downfall for this is you've got two people there, more one than the other, who's already been involved in factions. So if that's all, like way back, for example, the biggest one, if you're thinking, oh, all we can do with Barrett is put him in a faction, his career is not really going to ever have a real chance. So I think it's a good group. I think it's good because obviously you're given involvement, but I wouldn't really want to see Barrett in another faction.
I don't think it's the kind of faction that I could ever imagine WWE doing. It's like one of those things that you kind of fantasize about, you know, in like fantasy booking and stuff, but you know will never actually happen.
Like we had a fantasy about tea time segment people, you know, and just bringing that to reality, bring that to the YWC.
And also WWE did that in that little segment between Santino and Sheamus, didn't they? That one time. They always seem to do it. A bit like Marco Cole being knighted by a fake queen. Or a Capital Punishment when we had a fake speech by a fake president. Yes. Mr. Will Stroh. Why did WWE stop putting the effort into SmackDown after 2007? I guess because Raw became more of their flagship show and they thought, you know, that gets better ratings, so we're going to put more effort into that. And SmackDown is taped, so it's kind of cheap to run, so... You know, why would we want to put too much effort into that show?
It's a bit sad question because you rounded it up to a specific year that you felt things went downhill for SmackDown, and it is a shame that Raw's, because like The Rock made SmackDown brilliant and great and stuff. But yes, it's a shame that the WWE have not found something special to keep SmackDown at a good level.
What is your favourite match type? If you're talking about match stipulation or gimmicks, TLC has always been a favourite of mine, or a ladder match or something. They always, you know, get me going.
Mine would be Iron Man, because obviously you've got to, without 30 minutes to an hour, so it sees wrestlers you can actually do that for that long. And two, I guess I always miss the hardcore matches, because, you know, anything could happen, and I like that aspect.
Why did Ultimo Dragon fail? Probably because he was just a cruiserweight attraction, and then the cruiserweight division died.
He got a few compliments because I've been watching cruiserweight style DVDs like Eddie Guerrero's one, so he gets compliments. But to hear the fail part, I don't really know where it went. I guess when the WWE grew, it pushed the cruiserweights away.
With the brand extension being James Red Devil 66, 666. I nearly forgot your name there. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. With the brand extension being for the most part gone, do you think they should only have one World Championship belt instead of two?
Good question.
It depends if they're still going to tour both brands around the country separately and whether they're going to need a title match on each one of those to actually main event the show and be a draw. It just depends on that, really.
There is a big debate, or there was, between what championship should be together, the world or the mid-card. I think if you put the world title, you'll get the less likely of repeated feuds, repeated matches, and both Raw and SmackDown, as they're together now, like you said, could benefit from all fighting number one contenders for one championship.
When Taker makes the Hall of Fame, do you think it should be Kane that inducts him into it? Probably, I'd say yes.
There's no other real big standout person that made Taker roughly who he is in the build-up of his career than his brother.
Yeah, I mean, Paul Bearer would have been a good person, but unfortunately he passed away last year. Was it this year? Oh, it was this year, wasn't it? Technically, he passed away. So that would be the number one choice. I'd say Kane is the kind of person that you'd expect from a storyline and even a real-life standpoint would actually induct him into the history.
But then again, with Taker being the biggest name in the wrestling company, you could say Vince, but Kane would be the more likely person.
When Paul Bearer is put into the Hall of Fame, do you think Taker, Kane and Mick Foley should induct him into it? I think Undertaker and Kane should, from a storyline standpoint.
Brothers of Destruction, put in their family member.
And his family should be there as well, of course. After seeing Taryn Terrell in the last knockout standing match and the knockout ladder match, I have to say she is tougher than Drew McIntyre. What do you guys think? Well, really depends how you look at it, really. Technically, she did knock the fuck out of him, so technically, I guess you could say she's tougher than Drew.
I'll say Taryn Terrell, typical blonde diva knockout, but the way she put on in those matches, the ones you named, the stipulation matches, brilliant. But Drew McIntyre, I think he could have done brilliantly if the WWE didn't shoot him down.
I think Taryn Terrell did show people that she is just more than a pretty face. I'll just leave it at that. And that is the end of the Q&A number 118. Please tune in next week, same time, same place, etc. for Q&A 119, which we're probably going to record right after we've pressed the stop button on here.